What you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh. I'm with the band, your front row ticket to interviews and jam sessions with up-and-coming artists.
This is Chad Austin, and this month's episode of I'm With the Band features Asheville-based Chris Tullar and the brainchild behind Carpal Tullar. Let's take a listen.
Look, here it comes. Watch you sweat cold and freak out as it's sauntering in. Run for the hills, cower in fear in the hole that it's driven you in. 8:30 in, 5 o'clock out, yeah, it seems a lot worse than it is. But wait for it to come, wait for it over and over again.
Hey, this is Chad Austin, and today in the studio we have Chris Tullar.
Hi there.
Hi, Chris.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, thanks for coming in today. Now, it's not just Chris Tullar, it's also Carpal Tullar,
Carpal Tullar, right.
which you founded. Let me see if I got this right, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. So, you're an artist who writes his own material and usually winds up playing and producing everything and engineering everything.
Right.
And over the years, it has developed into jam sessions with other musicians to the point where you actually have these musicians playing your tunes. So,
Well, that's the ideal situation. The reality is that everything's right up until the point where I get the band together. That's the hard part. So I just I'll collect band members and they just kind of it's like a revolving door. Carpal Tullar is a revolving door organization where I don't know. So it's been hard to get a band going, but we've played a few shows, 3 or 4 shows total. So mostly it is a sort of a basement project kind of a thing.
right.
I have a room in my house, and I record everything in that room, and the material doesn't really leave the room until it's more or less done.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you work with other musicians? How do you pull them into your scope?
Well, I just don't have a very wide network because I'm sort of a hermit, which it's good for on the recording side of things, but finding a band is somewhat of a challenge for me. I use the normal like Craigslist avenues, which has worked out somewhat well in the past, and then I've known some people who have joined, but I'm right now exploring the idea of playing as a duo with a guy that I've been playing with for a few months now. So
Now, you're based out of Asheville.
that's right.
So let me ask you this a different way. It seems like in Asheville that there's a lot of college bands that really keep other bands who are trying to make a little bit of money or make it a little bit more serious than just let's go out on the weekend and play. And it seems to be a big deterrent for bands that are trying to get past that college level.
I could believe that, but I don't get out to see the shows that much, which may make me a hypocrite when I eventually start performing because I don't actually I don't go to too many shows, so I'm not really that into the musical scene right now. But I think that though Asheville isn't like a really hard market for new bands to get started, I think it is very flooded with music.
Right.
So there's a lot of music in Asheville. Everyone's got a band,
So I've been listening to your music, and what I've been hearing from your site, which is pretty neatly the way your site is laid out.
CarpalTullar.com.
It is very nicely done. I hear Ween, which is a big fan. I'm a big fan, especially the Chocolate and Cheese album.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually re-recorded Joppa Road. I love their music. I think they're brilliant. I wish the mainstream would catch on to them a little bit more, but I guess they're happy doing what they're wanting to do. The Beatles. It sounds like if somebody was to ask me about your music, I'd say it probably reminds me. It's like listening to Rocky Raccoon in the White Album mode. That's kind of where you're coming from in a lot.
That is definitely where my tastes are with the Beatles, anyway. Yeah.
So who else comes to mind?
Well, yeah, Ween is funny. It's I like Ween a lot too. I was compared to Ween before I had heard them, and so I don't know which came first on that. If I
The chicken or the ween?
right. But I don't know. There's probably some comparisons that can be made between me and They Might Be Giants is one of my favorite bands. But yeah, people pick up on those, I think. I don't know. You always try not to sound like someone.
Sure.
But you always just end up somehow sounding like.
Well, you are what you eat.
Right,
you know?
right.
So you're
Exactly.
inevitably going to sound like
And I
people
eat-
you've been listening to.
I do eat the Beatles. Yeah.
Well, you've already kind of answered this question about how often that Carpal Tullar performs. But when was the last time you guys performed together as a full piece band?
Well, actually, strangely, I know that day was October 1st of last year, and then so then we were going to play more shows, but maybe it's just the demographic of the people that I choose, the age and kids and everything. People just get really busy,
Right.
And we weren't making any money, to be honest. I mean, you play a while before you start making any money, so it's hard to really interest people, in that kind of a prospect. But
What do you do besides play music?
I'm a software engineer by day, so the music is my excursion into the creative side that I don't really get to access much during the day.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what pays for all the toys.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah. Don't have a lot of toys, but
Well, so how do you guys rehearse new tunes? I mean, do you purposely sit out? Well, I mean, let's talk in the past. How did you guys rehearse new tunes? Did you stay focused just on the original stuff? Did you guys pull any cover tunes in at all?
no. And the thing is that we kind of got a set list up, and it's like we'd get to the point where we could play it, and we never got to the point where we needed any filler, So it was asked a few times, like, hey, should we play any cover tunes? And I remember we'd say, well, yeah, maybe we'll just think about that. And at one point we thought of one, and then someone said, "Oh, no, that's passé," and so we just hadn't gotten to that point. I think it's just a matter of time put into it. Eventually, we would probably get to a cover tune, just because it's fun.
So, I mean, I guess the cover tune would then be redefined as a Tullar filler.
I suppose.
Our producer just gave me the look of, really? You had to make that joke? That was stupid. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the videos, which I enjoyed quite a bit. Now, we have some relation here within the show, because one of the people we have working on the show is a friend of yours and a big supporter of yours, which is Chris Fry.
Right.
And he directed your videos, I believe, correct?
Correct. Yeah, he's basically been the impetus behind all the videos that I can think of.
Well, let's talk about the Sulfa Drug. That's the first one that I watched, which has you playing all the instruments.
Right.
So how did you guys film that? 3 different screens together, or 3 different shots together, and then mask different ones so you could just see it, like all of you playing together?
I actually have 2 triplets.
You have 2 triplets? You got 6?
No, yeah, he kind of blew my mind with that one, because I kind of thought that it was going to be like 3 ghosts playing. But what he actually did was, I don't know if it's proper to reveal his secrets, but
It's Chris. We can beat him up if he says anything.
yeah.
No, don't beat me up. No.
He actually cut the video into so there are 3 videos. They're like puzzle pieces,
Right.
and they're like cut along a wall, and like across the floor, and
Right.
like past the drum cymbal, and like he's got these 3 puzzle pieces that are playing at the same time. He had the camera like in the closet so he could get a wider shot of it or whatever. But yeah, I was pretty impressed by that.
That was pretty neat. So what about the song Sulfa Drug?
Well, this is loosely influenced by the fact that my grandfather worked on sulfa drugs. He was a drug chemist. but it's all just a kind of a put on. You know, it's like the whole thing is like being addicted to sulfa drugs, which, as far as I know, is impossible.
Right.
So it's kind of like a spoof, you know.
It's like being addicted to an antibiotic.
Right.
It was still funny.
Specific, like, heart antibiotic or something.
Well, why don't we take a sample of one of your songs and you play for us?
Okay.
Because you brought a guitar. I saw you walk in with it.
I am prepared.
Excellent. What's the song you're going to play for us first?
Let's see. I'm going to play Flow, a song off of my new album, Flow. The Flow's not the album. The new album is Crow in Corn's Clothing.
Crow in what?
Crow in Corn's Clothing is the name of the album.
And the song is Flow?
The song is called Flow.
Let's take a listen.
All right.
In my mind I hear a bobwhite crow and the treetop pipers as they blow. But in real life I know that it's not so. It's just the off-white noise as people flow. And how they flow, and how they flow. How they block out my light and make me low. And how they flow, and how they flow. And how they take my fight, my how they flow. I might like to watch a sunset glow. I may survey white iris as it grows. But in real life there's something I still know. It's just the endless fight as people flow. And how they flow, and how they flow. How they block out my light and make me low. And how they flow, and how they flow. And how they take my fight, my how they flow. At this height, if I held my head right, I wouldn't see them filing out below. But from that height, I find a welcome sight. In real life, I only see the flow. I might like to watch a midnight show, or to soak up the lights at night that glow. But in my mind the only place I go is far away from places that they flow. And how they flow, and how they flow. How they block out my light and make me low. And how they flow, and how they flow. And how they take my fight and saturate my light. They're packing in too tight from every left and right. And there's no end in sight from end to make that night. And how they take my fight, my how they flow. And how they flow, and how they flow. How they got in my life, I'd like to know. And how they flow, and how they flow. And how they take my fight, my how they flow.
We'll get back to your show in a moment. Just a reminder, you're listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Find out more at themesh.tv and give us feedback on what you like.
This is Chad, and we'll get back to I'm With the Band in just a second. But first, I want to give you a little bit of a sample from my playlist. This is music that I listen to and that I think that you should too. This band is called Oka. There is a new style of world beat jam bands coming from Australia, and the 10-year-strong Oka is leading the way and taking the world by storm. Electrified didgeridoo, heavy slide guitar, soaring flutes, and juju rhythms are some of the many ingredients used within this electronic trio. Imagine Bob Marley meets Stevie Wonder and the Chemical Brothers in a steaming rainforest, and you kind of get the idea. You can buy their music on iTunes and visit their site at okamusic.com. And this is my playlist. Now back to the show. Since we just heard some music from your newest album, why don't we talk about your newest album, Crow in Corn's Clothing?
Well, I've been working on it for about 3 years, I guess. Crow in Corn's Clothing. I guess I should explain the title, even though it's a little bit difficult to explain. But basically, a crow in corn's clothing is sort of I think it's something that I made up, obviously to take on wolf in sheep's clothing. It's like seems like something that's bad, but it's not really that bad. I'm gonna have a hard time explaining that one real well, but once you see the album cover, I think it'll all just fall into place.
You would be crows surrounded by candy corn?
No, actually, you'd probably be more confused, to be truthful about it. But yeah, it's something that seems really bad, but I mean, in the end, it's just a crow. It's not out to kill anybody.
Who does your album covers?
I do the album covers too. So all this is probably why it takes me so long to do this stuff.
Right.
And the fact that I don't, I have a bit of free time, but not as much as I'd like. And so it takes a while to do all that stuff.
I understand about having control when you're working in the studio and you're writing all the songs, you're playing all the parts yourself, and I know the satisfaction that can come from that. But what about the camaraderie of working with other musicians?
Actually, I have a lot more experience working with myself than with other musicians. So there was never a time when I was like in a working band. Basically, I didn't even try to form a band until I was probably into my 30s. And, I've been trying loosely for the past 3 years or so. But, obviously my focus is on recording. So
right.
And bands take time, And,
sure.
But, no, I think I do really understand the value of being able to control everything myself. It has some disadvantages, but...
Do you ever feel like you can't see the forest for the trees?
I suppose. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, you have to step away from it. But it is good not having anyone to argue about it with.
Well, sometimes you still have arguments, but those are times you don't tell people about.
Right.
Now, you are an LR alumni.
That is true. Yeah.
Which is ironic because they're having the reunion this weekend as we're recording this.
I will be heading over there tomorrow, yes.
They used your music in the musical Air Conditioner Stonehenge.
Correct.
So what kind of experience was that? I mean, that had to be a nice Aligo trip for a while.
Oh, it was, yeah. No, it was. We had done the play before, the year before. Joe Sturgeon had put on a Midsummer Night's Magical Mystery Tour, which was a Beatles, kind of a Midsummer Night's Dream Beatles marriage. And I had done the music for that, but it was all Beatles music. And
that was good. I saw that.
Well, thank you. And it was all, so that was all recorded music. And then I think Joe's girlfriend at the time had the idea of putting on a musical based on my music. And I remember thinking, that doesn't make sense. But somehow he kind of had this vision, because I didn't really see how that was really going to fit together into a dramatic performance. But Joe's a creative guy, and so he came up with this really surreal, psychedelic kind of Alice in Wonderland based trip it was a musical, so all the kids in the play were all singing Carpal Tullar songs, which that I think was probably the most gratifying thing, was just to hear other people singing my music.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, it was great, just hearing it performed different ways.
I want to talk about another one of your videos for a second. You have a video named Planets.
Right.
Which I enjoyed just because the simple fact that at the very beginning of it, there is an ode to Douglas Adams.
That is a Chris Fry edition there. Yeah.
Is it?
Well, the whole video was done by Chris Fry. Yeah.
Well, for those of our listeners who don't know who Douglas Adams is, he's mostly famous for writing The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and the whole song is a lesson in astronomy.
Very loose lesson, yeah.
Right.
And I got to say, with that one, in my defense, I wrote that song just before. Actually, the year that they dropped Pluto as a planet.
I was going to ask you about that.
So it was actually, that's in my defense, but the song is in Pluto's defense, which I think should still be memorable to people for something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, also in the video, you have a whole slew of spaceships. And the
Right.
sad part about it is I can name them all.
That is pretty sad.
And if you think I'm kidding, the only one I wasn't really sure of actually was the phone booth, unless it was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
I'm going to say, knowing Chris Fry, that was Doctor Who.
Doctor Who? Okay, so I was wrong on that one. The other one is the USS Enterprise, Discovery 1 from 2001, one of the TIE Fighter series in Star Wars, a Klingon warbird, Corellian ship, and the very first spaceship you see in Star Wars Episode 4
okay.
that Princess Leia got captured on, the Battlestar Galactica Vipers, the ship from Aliens, the second movie, Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, because you can hear Darth Vader. That one was a giveaway. Bounty Hunter from Star Wars, I think, was that third one. Cylon Raider from Battlestar Galactica, and the Destroyer from Star Wars.
Okay, that's impressive.
I know. I didn't have to look those up. That's the sad part.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, Chad.
Thank you.
I'd say.
I love that video. I thought it was awesome. I thought it rocked.
He did a great job with it.
Well, I like the music too. I mean, it all flowed together, so it was a nice compliment to each other.
And the Darth Vader was added afterwards. It's not actually in the original song.
Oh,
Yeah, just in case
anybody wanted to know
a little
that.
trivia there for you.
How often do you write new music with the schedule and the freedoms you were speaking of earlier?
I don't really, I don't really sit down and write songs. More like I'll come up with like a jingle or something, and then like 5 years later I'll write lyrics to it or something. And that's how almost all of them go. They're all like, by the time they're finished, it's a song that's been rattling around for years. Very rarely, actually, Planets is one of the like 3 or 4 exceptions of that rule, because Planets was conceived like on a Friday and then recorded by the next Sunday or something, which is like a complete record for me.
Right. Well, what kind of platform do you record on?
Right now, I'm recording. I have a PreSonus Fire Studio interface with a. So this is the first album I've done that's been recorded on a computer. I used to have one of those. It was like a 12-track digital audio workstation kind of thing.
Sure. Hey, what
And then
was it? Was it a Kai or Roland?
This was a Yamaha,
Right.
and it was kind of hard to let that go because I'd gotten so good at tweaking the little knobs and stuff.
I know what you're talking about. So what software are you using?
I'm using Cubase.
Steinberg,
Steinberg. Right?
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, Cubase, and there's really not much. It's not a very sophisticated rig. It's just, that interface and a preamp and some microphones and some good intentions.
I talked to a lot of friends who are engineers and producers, and there's a big trend going from Pro Tools over to Logic software because Logic is so songwriter oriented. Mm-hmm. Have you heard that before?
No, I don't keep very educated in this realm either, unfortunately. But
Sometimes being too educated can take away from the process.
and from your money, yeah.
That's for sure. But you're a software engineer. You should be able to afford that kind of stuff.
You'd think. We won't get into salaries.
He just makes a bit less than everybody else. A bits and ones. All right. Now, you also have music available right now on CD Baby, which is cdbaby/artist. Actually, I should say cdbaby.com/artist/Carpal Tullar. Let me spell that for everybody so they can get that right, because I was misspelling it for a while. It's CarPalTullar.
Yeah. If you think about putting an E, just don't put E's in it.
Yeah, get rid of the E's.
No E's.
All right. I'm going to give you a couple of things to chew on here for a second. And then when we get done with that, you can take us out and play us another song.
Okay.
We do this like a word association, phrase association.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I try to go towards current events.
Okay.
Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But since we had such a monumental event happen recently, let me ask you about how you feel about Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs was an extraordinary individual, being a very inspiring person, I'd say. I can't imagine having an occupation that I would want to be doing while I was dying. I mean, anything, but it's pretty admirable, I'd say.
Today in the news, a Pakistan doctor was reported to be tried for treason from the Pakistani government for helping the CIA to obtain DNA samples of bin Laden.
My first thought is, oh no.
It's kind of like, well, actually, I can't say what it's like. What do you think?
I mean, I just can't even, I'm so speechless. I just can't even believe that that's true. But honestly, it doesn't, I don't see it affecting my immediate week that much.
Are you sure?
No, you can never be sure. You'd never know. That's what.
Because when you came in, they were saying, "How you doing? Do you need anything?" So, well, I needed to contact my Pakistani doctor, and so I just want to throw that out.
Right.
You know.
I did get up to go to the water fountain. I could have gotten picked off.
Lastly, and this is my favorite because I like to record: digital recording versus analog recording.
Analog sounds better, but it's a pain in the ass.
You're looking over your shoulder.
Digital is just like, I mean, once you go to digital, I think it's kind of impossible to go back to analog. And my only experience with analog is very, my own personal experience is just 4 tracks. But I mean, I got pretty involved in like tape splicing and all sorts of, bouncing and trying to fit as many tracks on one channel as possible.
Right.
And that's fun. It becomes a science. It becomes sort of an obsession. And I actually started recording things with 2 tape players and just, bouncing back and forth. Mm-hmm. And you could, getting like a 4-track that sounded like it was recorded like on the space shuttle or something. Digital, I mean, I think analog has a, it has this natural compression that goes with it, like
right.
Tape has its own compression and it's just smoother. Digital is just easier and you can kind of get your point across, and you can, in my case, digital is a necessity because I use a lot of tricks to make myself look like a good performer.
Sure. You can cut and paste.
Yeah.
Do it right one time. You can fix.
Right. I mean, I've had a single track, a single take or not a single take, but, one track can be many performances, just, strewn together. I almost feel bad about it, but I don't.
I think the only thing that's bad about digital recording is that it gives you so many options of being able to, like you said, string together 100 performances and getting one composite take to make it just as best as it can possibly be. Mm-hmm. And then they come see you live and realize that you're not quite that perfect.
Yeah, that is pretty embarrassing.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Hope you haven't heard the record first.
However, digital can't capture the essence of a live performance either.
No, not really. Even recording live doesn't quite do it, does it?
No. But we're going to take that chance. We're going to have you play another song and take us out.
Let's do it.
Well, thanks for coming in here today, Chris. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure re-meeting you again.
Well, the pleasure is mine. It was great to be here.
And take us out.
Okay, I'm going to play my guitar and I'm going to walk out of the building. This song is also off the new album. It's called Don Quixote. A famous actor, should I say Union Civil War reenactor. He was a socialite when he was out to fight. He led an army like a mighty tractor. Don Quixote was a famous actor. Shira, Shira. Rosinante was a comely villain who headed up the phony Yankee killing, and who had lost the fight, and who to Don's delight set an example for the bold and willing. Rosinante was a comely villain. Rosinante didn't like at all who Don Quixote was, who he was, who he was. But by then a southern wind had wafted her scent through the air, through the air, through the air.
he caught a whiff of heaven. It got his 1 horsepower motor revving. Though he knew how to lead a horse to water, he also knew she might find him a sightly sight. Don Quixote knew the ways of battle. He slightly shifted underneath his saddle. If he could only part the flank behind her, 'cause every time he'd wind behind her, a mighty voice inside him cried a call for action. Action, action, Chiron. When she recoiled beside him, he knew that it would take more than a famous actor. Actor, actor, Chiron, Chiron, Don. Quixote knew the way to get it was simply to go up behind and take it. He was a ghost at night, and in the pale moonlight, he stole into the barn behind her, and with a hoof on either side, he backed her. So begat another famous actor, Chiron, Chiron.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.